Well, here's the thing. Being a Jehovah's Witness, they don't believe in healings. So I
Wow,
didn't really have that.
gotcha. Do you
Yeah.
think that if
And
you had, do you think that if you had seen miracles and had experienced like healings and all this other stuff, and to be honest with you, Christianity doesn't either. They think they do. Because if they did it, they would all be in the hospitals healing people. And that's a fact.
true.
And they don't. No one goes to hospitals. Why? Because they don't have faith in themselves to heal people. That's why. Welcome to TaNaCh Talk. I'm your host, William Hall, broadcasting live from Kingsland, Texas, USA, with another episode of Testimonial Tuesdays, or Monday Memoirs. Those both files are on my YouTube channel. You'll find all the testimonials there. Today we've got a new testimony of a young lady here named Ellie C. Ellie, it's a pleasure. I know we finally made this happen. We've been talking about this for about a month or so. Very glad you're here. So before we officially get started, I just want to I want to back up. I want to zoom out and just see your overall in a really quick format where you started and where you ended up. So how old were you whenever you were introduced to Christianity?
I was born and raised in it.
Born and raised. That's interesting. Okay, good deal. And how long were you in Christianity before you came out of Christianity?
40 years.
40 years. That's beautiful. That really is.
Yeah, whole
I
life.
I could hear this. I could hear this like 20 times a day, and it still amazes me. It's really good. Um, so okay, 40 years. Okay, and how long have you been out now of Christianity?
2 years.
2 years. Okay, so this is
2 years.
this is fairly fresh for you. Okay,
Yes.
interesting. Okay, all right. So now we're going to zoom in here. Okay, so how was it that you became a person who was born into Christianity? Tell us a little bit about your family heritage. Were they preachers, pastors? Did your mom, whatever? Just give us some insight there.
So, my whole family, especially on my mother's side, they are Christians, specifically Jehovah's Witnesses. My mom was introduced to it when she was a child. My grandmother became a Jehovah's Witness when her kids were small. It's a pretty big family. My mom has 10 siblings, so it's pretty large. On my dad's side, my grandmother, she was a Jehovah's Witness as well, and he became one in his 20s. So I'm from Cuba, so this all happened in Cuba,
Mm.
and it's a communist country. So since they don't support the government, the men would go like back in the day, like it was worse than it is now. Like basically, the men will go to jail. So on my mom's side, uh, pretty much like all the ones that were in front of the congregation or running the congregation, they were in jail. So
Oh
since
wow.
she was the eldest of the girls. So she was in the front of the congregation. And then my dad, he was an elder, which that's what they call, I guess,
Sure.
preachers. And he then became what they call a circuit overseer, which is a person that has like a group of congregations that they go and visit. So he went and visited my mom's congregation, which she was heading, and that's how they met and got married. And I was born into it.
Wow. So your dad, I mean, I've seen documentaries years ago where they have like within Catholicism where they have these major, the major priest will go around and oversee all these others. And is that so? You're saying your dad was actually at that level?
Yes.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's crazy. So
Yeah.
okay. So that's a pretty embedded root system you've got there.
Oh, yes. I actually learned to read in the Bible before I went to school. So, yeah, he was very religious.
Wow, wow, wow. Pardon me, I should have asked you this earlier. Is your dad with us now? Is he still alive?
He's still alive, yes.
Cool.
He's
That
in
did good.
his almost 90 now.
Wow, Baruch Hashem, that's
Yeah.
crazy. So how says I know I'm jumping around a little too much, but how does he feel about where you're at now?
Well,
Should we wait till later to ask that question?
yes,
Okay.
it is actually a very interesting question.
Okay,
Yes,
we'll
it's a,
let's come back to that because I do want to stick on a timeline anyway. Okay, so you were born into this. So how old were you when you think in your brain where you started taking the Bible seriously? Like where you think, man, I really need to believe and live in this.
Well, that was instilled in me since I was a child. So
Okay.
I grew up, Jehovah's Witnesses, they think that they have the truth. So that's how I grew up believing that, we had the truth and we knew everything about the Bible. I would study the Bible a lot. They have something called pioneers, which is a person that dedicates a certain amount of hours a month to go from door to door and, try to proselytize people. And I started doing that when I was 14, and I did that for 15 years.
Wow. So you
So
were
yes,
you were going door to door for 15 years. So you were really
yes, I,
good at sharing y'all's faith with people.
yes,
Wow. That's wild. So I had an encounter last year sometime. I was at my brother's house, and we had some Jehovah's Witnesses came to the door. They're younger kids. That probably looked like it was 16 to 19 years old, whatever. And I just I had fun with them. I went out and I was asking them questions they'd never heard before because counter-missionary. And at the end of the
yes,
day, what I come to realize is that what they told me, they said that they're not allowed to study outside of their faith at all. They have to stay within. They have to study only the material. They can't watch any videos that somebody tells them to watch. They can only watch what's approved through them. And Christianity would mock at that and see, well, they were never saved. They didn't know Jesus, and plus they're telling them they can't even learn from others. Well, Christianity does the same thing. When I tried to pass videos along, they said, "Oh no, we can't watch that." And I'm like, so you're no different than that. So that being said, what was your did you ever go outside that just out of curiosity and just try to see? Obviously, you did. You're here now, but I mean, during that 15 years where you were doing that, were you just solid, dedicated, non-wavering, or did you ever find a few things across, even through your readings of y'all's book, that made it seem a little bit questionable? Like, why is that there if this is this?
oh yes, absolutely. And yes, we're totally discouraged from searching anything outside and not even Googling anything. So basically, you're ignorant as when it comes to history or archaeology. You can only read whatever they have in their publications. But reading the publications and the Bible, I came across things that didn't make sense to me. Like one of the things that never made sense to me was the disconnect between the Old Testament and the New Testament. But of course, you're discouraged from asking questions, so I couldn't really ask. I
Right.
couldn't ask, and I was not a rebel to go and search elsewhere.
Right.
Not until later on.
Yeah.
So I was pretty much stuck in it, and I had those doubts in the back of my mind, but I never really did anything until later on.
Okay, so let's move later on. So you said you were in Christianity for about 40 years. So
Yes.
at some point in time, you met someone who would completely change your path and your trajectory altogether. Tell us a little bit about that.
This actually was 5 years ago.
5 years ago. Oh, wow. So this was a journey for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, well, in reality, we met in 2017.
Okay.
And he was actually very serious about it. It was my first time dating someone that is not a Jehovah's Witness because that's frowned upon. And at the time, like, we just dated for a couple of times, but he said that he was serious, and I actually got scared, so I didn't move forward.
Oh,
But we
wow.
stayed in touch. We stayed in touch, and later in 2020, I actually had a failed relationship with a Jehovah's Witness that had the same name as my husband,
Oh, wow.
and they were both Italian.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we started talking again, and this time, like, we were serious, and we got married during the pandemic.
Nice. Okay.
So he started asking me questions about the Bible,
So
and
when you met him, he was not a Christian either. He had already come out of both of those, or was he kind of like one foot in the door still?
so he wasn't really. He was so his family is Catholic,
Okay.
and that was what he learned in his childhood, but he never did anything about it. When he grew up, he started searching for God, and he visited some churches, Christian churches. But he said that the whole idea of Jesus didn't make sense to him.
Mm.
So he started looking into Judaism. And when we got married, he told me a few things about it, but I was really into the religion I was in, so
Right.
I didn't really pay attention to it. So to me, well, let's say not to me, but to Jehovah's Witness, like all the other religions are false religions. Like you
Hmm.
have the truth, you know. So at the time, that was my mindset. And but he asked me questions that made sense to me, and I couldn't answer. But that got me very upset. I
Oh.
would get so angry whenever he would ask me questions. Some of the questions he would ask me was, why? How can Jesus be the Messiah if the Messiah is supposed to come from the line of David and he was not Joseph's biological son? So how can that be possible? And I couldn't answer that.
Right.
I read the publications that was, you know, the information I had access to that I could, you know, research. I even asked my mom. My mom asked my dad, and they could not come up with a satisfactory answer. So like that, he asked me so many other questions. Another thing that he brought up was uh, the virgin,
Right.
that the term used, it's Alma.
Right. But
And at the time I was like, oh my God, like what are you talking about?
things that you
Yes.
didn't even know existed are problems. Yeah.
Yes. Oh yes.
That's great.
Totally. So after a while he kind of stopped because that kind of put a wedge in our relationship a
Sure.
little bit. And he waited. He was very patient. He waited until I became more open-minded. And then that's when one day we started watching a movie. I think it was about like Exodus or something like that. Um, and after that, he said, "Hey, do you want to watch this debate?" And it was a debate of Rabbi
Oh,
Tovia singer and a
well
pastor.
played. Well played. Good job.
Yes, and I
Yeah.
was like, "Sure, why not?" At this point, I had kind of stopped going to service for a little bit, and then we had moved to Malta already. So being away from that Christian
Hmm.
environment helped me open my mind to new things. So I said, sure, why not? And when I saw the debate, I was so impressed because Tovia he basically knew the New Testament better than the pastor.
Yep.
And I was like,
Yep.
oh my God, it's not even his Bible and he knows it.
That's funny.
So then that's when he introduced me to your show with Rabbi Tovia Sanger. And when I started watching the show, like the things that he would say, like the phantom passages that Paul quotes,
Hmm.
I would write everything down and then I would look it up in the Bible. And I
Good for
would be
you.
like, oh my God, yes, yes. Like I looked up everything he
Wow.
said.
Nice.
And I was like, well, this is true. And then I started looking into the Council of Nicaea that he talked about as well. And I was shocked. And I was like, oh my God. So if the New Testament is man made, Christian religion can't be from God.
Right.
Like they have a man book, a
Hmm.
man made book. So that's when I realized that Christian religion is not the truth. And I was so devastated that my whole life I had lived a lie, basically.
Hmm.
And I cried.
Yeah. And you can't help but feeling that you literally wasted 40 years of your life of just complete waste.
Yes.
It's what it feels like. And it would have felt that way had you not found Judaism. Of course, I try to encourage people. It could look at it as a stepping stone. Some people can't make that leap just all at once. It's like one step at a time. My stepping stone was from Christianity to Messianic Christianity, excuse me, for about 4 or 5 years, and then finally here. And so that was your journey. You know, so it was about 3 years or so after you met your husband is whenever you finally started coming around, and then a couple years later, boom, here you are.
Yes. Oh yes, and that was the best thing that ever happened to me because now when I read the Torah, it's so different.
It's
Like I'm not
rich. Oh
reading
yeah,
it
yeah.
with a Christological lens.
Yep.
Like I can read it for what it really is,
Yeah.
and that's just life changing. It's amazing.
That's wonderful. That's so cool. So do you have kids? Do you have children?
Yes, we have a son. He's 5 months old.
Oh, congratulations. And Baruch Hashem, he's not being born into Christianity or to
Yes,
anything
yes,
else. Yes, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
yes. Thank you so much.
Wow, what an amazing story. So, I don't want to cut anything short. Is there anything else you want to share? Any crazy stuff? You know what people ask me all the time? How can you turn your back on all the healings and all the miraculous things that you've witnessed over the years? Have you experienced anything like that?
Well, here's the thing. Being a Jehovah's Witness, they don't believe in healings. So I
Wow,
didn't really have that.
gotcha. Do you
Yeah.
think that if you
And
had, do you think that if you had seen miracles and had experienced like healings and all this other stuff, and to be honest with you, Christianity doesn't either. They think they do because if they did it, they would all be in the hospitals healing people. And that's a fact.
true.
And they don't. No one goes to hospitals. Why? Because they don't have faith in themselves to heal people. That's why. So,
Yeah.
but had you seen and had you been experienced around all that sort of thing, do you think it would have made it more difficult for you to leave, or would you do you feel like the intellect that you have and the knowledge that you came across was enough to say get out?
What I came across was enough to say get out because if it's you can argue with that. If
Yeah.
a book it's man-made, it doesn't come from God. So how can it be the truth?
Well said. Yeah. Well said. Unbelievable. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Talk to your husband because I would love to hear his story.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
that would
I'll
be
let
fun.
him know. The
Okay.
only other thing that you asked me earlier was about my family's view of what I'm doing now.
Oh yeah, I was asking you about that. Yeah, yeah. So I want to go back to your dad because your dad being such a high leader in that movement. How does he? Do you and him have a close relationship now, or has that been divided because of your current position?
Yeah, so that's actually a very sad situation. The last time that I spoke anything, it was with my mom, and so my dad he had a stroke and he lost all mobility and
Oh,
speech, and he regained it, but he's still, I mean, he's not what he was before. And to my mom, I started kind of like letting her or telling her things that I was learning, not openly because I know how they are.
hmm.
And when she just caught glimpse of what I was doing, she basically called me a traitor.
Oh, I'm
And
sorry.
like I was removed from all the social groups from my family, so no one in my family talks to me.
Wow, I'm so sorry about that.
Yes. Yeah. So they
Yeah.
do have this practice that anyone that goes against what they believe in, they're considered apostates.
Excommunication. Yeah. Wow.
Yes. So basically that's what I am to them now.
Right. The truth will
Yeah.
one day come out, and they will see. And I
Yes.
think they're going to be shocked, and so is all the Christians, that hell isn't what everybody makes it all out to be. It's like
Absolutely.
so. I'm looking forward to that day, no doubt.
Yes.
Well, listen, Miss Ellie, thank you so much for your time. This was such a neat interview. I'm really glad you agreed to come on. It was awesome. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I
You,
really appreciate the opportunity of being here.
absolutely.
And I hope that, testimonies like this help other people that are in Christianity realize that it's not the truth.
I completely agree. So, guys, if you guys have any care about this sort of thing, be sure to share these videos with your friends, and yeah. So, on the YouTube channel, be sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, and that's all you got to do. So, Miss Ellie, it's been a pleasure. We'll talk to you soon. Don't hang up. We'll talk here for just a few more minutes. Take care, everybody. Shalom.
Thank you so much.
You bet. Bye.
If you enjoy this channel and the content, and it has changed your life, or perhaps the life of a loved one or a close friend, would you please consider supporting this work? You can click this link and it'll take you directly to my website with the donate button. Or there's a Patreon link and a mailing address for snail mail if you would prefer. If you do donate, please do me a favor and leave me a phone number where I can contact you and thank you properly. I hope you all have a wonderful 2025. Shalom.
והכמיהה